Pyro Unleashed presents the Finale3D Tip of the Week, sponsored by Finale Fireworks.
All right. Well, we learned a lot in the effect editor last week. I'm Donnie. I don't know about you, but I still learned several things. Yeah. So
yeah, it was really cool. I'm excited to see something different this week too. Now.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's get into the next effect. Let's try to build a Sky Comet, and then let's build it into a cake.
Nice. Okay, you guys never take it easy on me.
we have reviewed plenty of Sky Comet cakes on the show this season, so now we want to see how to make those.
So the Sky Comet is one of those items that, as a single shot or as a cake shot, isn't something that can be represented with VDL, right?
Yeah.
And one way you can know that is you can head over to the Help Center in Finale3D. I'll just quickly bring that up for you. So if we pop over here and we go to documentation articles, I think we've shown this in a previous episode, but I just want to remind everyone, you can hit visual descriptive language, and then you can come in here to this article on the glossary of VDL terms. And I like to use the find function in my browser, so I just hit Control F, and I might search for Sky. If I search Sky Comet, nothing comes up. So sometimes there is a term, but it's just not the words you might be thinking. So it's handy to kind of browse through. In my case, I know that Finale doesn't do Sky Comets with VDL alone, right? And so the whole point is, hey, how can we get what we want, even though VDL by itself, just typing words doesn't do it. So and this does require some knowledge of VDL, because think about what we talked about in our previous episode where we said every effect starts as a VDL effect, and best practice is to make the effect that's as close as possible using VDL to the final effect that you want, and then only making the changes to the customizations that you absolutely have to. Otherwise, you go down that rabbit hole of kind of having to tinker forever. So I strongly recommend having a solid foundation and knowledge on VDL, and then go from there. So let's get into it. I'll just remove this item we made before, and then we'll go into effects and create an effect. This time, let's say our cake shots are 35 millimeters. Does that seem reasonable?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we'll do a red strobing willow ear with blue ear.
So wait, what is the ear? What is ear, Drew? I'm confused.
So I don't know where this term comes from. As long as I've been in Pyro, I think that the average Pyro would call this a sky mine. Sky mine is an effect where you have some kind of insert or shell that's launched from the ground, and it ejects stars from one side. So it's sort of like half a bow tie. Right. So a bow tie ejects almost like an hourglass shape of stars in opposite directions. An ear is half of that. And I think a good answer to, or at least an answer to, why is it called an ear, is because with VDL there can't be any ambiguity. And so the word mine already means something that shoots up from the ground. And so it creates ambiguity for this VDL system if you have something else that has mine in it, but isn't the mine that shoots up from the ground. So it has its own word, and that word is ear. I don't know the origin of the word, but knowing that that's a thing is important. And again, the glossary, you could find that in the glossary and see that. So mastery of VDL, or at least cursory knowledge of VDL, is really helpful. So I want my stars to be these beautiful red strobing willow stars in my ear, in the ear effect, in the Sky Comet, and I want there to be blue stars that come out at the base. I'm just kind of going off of something I've seen that I think is common in cakes that exist out there, right? And then I want there to be a rising green tail on my on each shot, right? So rising green tail to Sky Comet, with red strobing willow as the comet itself and some blue stars, right?
Yeah.
So I cheated. I practiced this before the episode, and that's why I know that these words type. So that's the real answer. Is it's not always this easy. And if if somebody reaches out to me and says, "Hey, Drew, how do you make this?" There's a really good chance that I'm going into Finale and trying 10 different things before I reply.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly normal to have to kind of tinker to figure it out. But the key is, if we want the tail and we want sort of 2 layers within our aerial effect, you want to build those with VDL so that when you go into the effect editor, you're not starting with a blank slate.
Yeah.
Like if we skip doing the blue stars, then it becomes much harder to then get what we want when we go into the effect editor. So let's get this into my effects. Let's put it into the show just so we can see it. And let's go ahead and hit play here. There's our green tail. Now this green tail has gold. It's a green gold tail, which is normal by default when you just do green tail. Yep. And then we have the stars shooting out. They're kind of shooting out in the angle. Based on the angle, this one, they kind of shoot in a random direction. So in this case, they don't look great because they're shooting away from us. If we were to just delete this from the timeline and add another one, every instance of the effect comes in with a different. Call me a liar. Yeah. So there we go. It's random, right? So as in real life, these little tubes are tumbling as they fly up, right? So they shoot off in whatever direction. So there's one there where it's kind of shooting in a direction that's easier to see. So there's our red strobing willow stars and our blue stars and of course our green tail. So we want just one Sky Comet though. So we'll go in and do edit in effect editor. And let's say that we don't want this gold trail. I'm going to show you 2 ways to get rid of it. One way is we can say green tail, no trail. So we can do it with VDL. And remember, you can edit VDL in the effect editor as well. If you type up here, you're sticking with VDL. If you start messing with stuff down here, you're going through that one-way door and you're creating a custom effect in which there is no return. So there we go. Another way, let's go back, remove those 2 words. Another way would be to go into the launch node that applies to the rising tail and find the tip. And there's the tip that's green. And here are the 2 trails. There are actually 2 colors of sparks in this gold trail. For realism, you can just kind of see there's some dim amber sparks. Those are the charcoal sparks. And there's these bright gold sparks. If we go to actions and do delete, we delete the charcoal sparks. Actions, delete. We delete the gold sparks. Now we've got just that green tip. Just the tip, yeah. Let's brighten that up. So I'll go ahead and just change it to 15 millimeters to exaggerate it. We could, dial up the intensity to really make it crazy bright if we wanted to. But I just want to give it this kind of look. Yeah. So if we scrub forward here on the timeline, we can see the burst of the ears. And we've got the blue and the red strobe willow. So I can see just by glancing at the colors that this break here represents the red strobing willow because I see that red and the gold, and this one down here represents the blue. So we know the first thing we want is 1 Sky Comet. So we go into the break node and we change the star count to 1. Now we're down to 1. Ooh. So for this one,
the old way.
So for this one, for the blue, what we need is we really want this to be like a mine where it's sort of comet with mine, like you'd have it on the ground. Yeah. Mine stars are kind of short, not traveling as far as the comet. So we can first do something like reduce the number maybe to 30, and then here we go to the width. So this is the break width, which in this case controls how far these stars travel. If we just dial this down to something like that, we kind of get those blue stars not traveling out as far, just sort of being the base around that Sky Comet, right? Yeah. So now we have something like this. There's our green tail rising, and then the burst, something like that. It's burning out awfully quickly, so we might also come back up to the Sky Comet break node here and do something like increasing the duration. So we can do that here, maybe change that to 2 seconds. It's still going to travel the same distance, it's just going to burn for longer and kind of droop down more because gravity starts pulling it down. We could make that Sky Comet shoot out a little bit further, so here's the width for that. Now it's going to cause it, like, if you want a comet that really shoots out, there you go. Maybe it's just a matter of looking at the video, and kind of seeing what it's doing, and then trying to match that if you've got a cake you're trying to replicate. Yeah. So that looks pretty good, I think. So we'll just go ahead now and save that. and I clicked yes to update it in the show. So here's our single shot or our cake shot. And again, the way it looks is going to be a function of which way it's actually being, which way it's actually being launched or breaking in the sky. So that particular one by itself doesn't look great, but now we can use that effect to make a cake. And remember, the effect editor doesn't make cakes or edit cakes. It edits individual effects, which you can then use to create cakes.
So one more question before you create the cake, because I know typically these would be like a red and green alternating Sky Comet. Is there a quick way to just duplicate this and re-represent, switch it from red to green strobing willow?
That's a good question. So do you want so for example, this one has red strobing.
Yeah, so we'll switch that to green strobing and then the rising tail.
Do you want each one to have red and green, or do you want some red and some shots to have red and some shots to have green?
Some shots to have red, some shots to have green.
Okay, that's a great question. So what I would do is, to keep my head on straight, the first thing I would do is make sure that the description here makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I would duplicate this. And so the way I would do that, right now we don't have a duplicate option in the right-click menu, but you can do copy and then do paste. And now I've made a duplicate of that. And again, to keep my head on straight, I'm going to change, you say green?
Green, yeah, and then switch it to...
So now I've made that to be green. Now, I just changed the description. I could have written elephant or banana in this box. It doesn't change. It's just what we're calling it. It's just to help keep us organized. So to change that, we're going to go in to the effect editor for that new effect. And we're going to go ahead and it's easier to see if we kind of zoom in using our mouse wheel. There we can see those stars there. And go to where the red is and change this to green. And you might be thinking, holy crap, how do I do that exactly? If you want to use just some green, you could just kind of find your green and drag this until you're happy with it. I recommend using the same start and end color, so you can use Control C and Control V to paste to make sure you get the same exact hex value. If you want to use, if you're anal retentive and you want to use Finale's green, and that's what I do, I come over here to the glossary, and actually more specifically, I go back to the table of contents, and I'll go down to visual descriptive language, and I'll go to VDL colors.
Okay.
And here is a list of all the Finale colors. And so you can go, for example, to green, and there is the color code for green. This is a hex color code, so for anybody who's done any kind of programming or web development, it's the same as an HTML color code.
Yeah.
Right, so you get that, you bring that, you paste that here, and now you've got Finale's green. If you cared, you could just, we don't have a color picker. I'm sure everybody's watching, why isn't there just a color picker? Just didn't get there yet. So there it is with the green.
Perfect. And then you could do that with say the rising tail. You could switch that to red or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's come back here to VDL colors and let's find red, and then here's copy that. I'm using Control C on my keyboard. Come up to the rising tail and change that to red. Now notice one thing I just pasted here and here in the start and end color. That doesn't change the node VDL. It's just how it works. It could be a little confusing, especially if you're new, to say, wait a minute, this still says rising tail green. Why does it say that? It's just that the text isn't dynamically updated.
Gotcha.
That's just how it works. If you really cared about that, there's some ways to do it, but it's not affecting the look. So kind of just, I would say, just ignore it. Really, is the most efficient solution.
Makes sense.
So now we have. There's our red guy, kind of off in the distance. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see it better. And then here's our second one. It's got the green and the other color tail. So green tail to red Sky Comet, red tail to green Sky Comet, green strobing willow Sky Comet, to be more specific.
Yeah. All
right. So how many shots in our? We're doing a fan cake.
Yeah. Let's do
how many
49 shot fan cake. So 7 by 7.
7. Okay. So in this case, an easy way is just to build a single row. Is to say, okay, we're going with green, then we're going with red. So we just need to. So I'll just hit play and add them. Right. So here's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've just got them laid out on the timeline.
I did not realize you could add as you were just playing. That's
why not?
Yeah.
So now I've got these here. I'm not worried about the exact timing yet. I'm just going to make my fan. You can go in any order. We could get the timing right and then we could fan them, or we could fan them and get the timing right. I'm just going to do the fanning first. So I'll make them into a fan. What total angle are you thinking, David?
Let's go 70.
70. How about that? Is that good?
Perfect.
Okay, so you're then, they're firing from left to right. So that's our first row.
Yep.
We'll go back to script, angle, sequences, and do spread out evenly. And let's just say 0.2 seconds between shots. All right. So now we get something like this, and let's look at it. So we made a slice cake. Well, we made single shots. We didn't make any kind of cake yet. But let's go ahead and duplicate this and then make the next set of rows. We need 6 more rows, right?
Yep.
So I'll just click and drag my mouse over this. I like to use Control-C for copy, and then I can just do Control-V over here. And when I say over here, I clicked on the timeline, and then it pasted from that point forward.
Yeah.
But our problem is that these shots still go left to right. So we need to select those and go to Script, I like to use reorder reverse order.
Yep.
There are other ways to do it, but this one's the quickest. Just script reorder reverse order. And now these 7 shots are firing the other way. So now we need another row going left to right, but I know I need both of these. So I can just Control-C, Control-V. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Now we've got 6 rows. Now we've got 8 rows, and we don't need this last one because, David, you said we only get 49.
Yep.
Now we just need to fix up our timing. So one last time we can go to Script, Sequences, Spread Out Evenly, and if we do 0.2, we're going to get a 9.6 second cake.
Yep.
So if you want to enter the total duration from first launch to last launch, you could just put in a number like 10 if you wanted something very specific. There it is, and you can preview it as single shots. You get the idea?
Perfect.
Select all these, effects, combine as cake effect. Finale thinks about it and then gives you the VDL.
Perfect.
Now in this case, we're seeing something pretty cool. We're seeing a combination of human readable VDL and the custom sims.
Yeah.
So the custom sims are represented here in the curly braces. Up here that you're seeing the full simulation parameters in these long strings of characters. Down here, it's just summarized as Sim 1, Sim 2, so that's readable. Otherwise, we'd have this so much text to be unreadable on the screen, kind of like this box up here, which needs to, we can make it better. But so this is the human readable VDL, 49 shot cake, 70 degrees. First effect is Sim 1, second effect is Sim 2, 7 rows, and this is what each row does, etc. Now we'll give this a part number. We can say whatever we want, and then David's Sky Comet cake, and David, you made this cake, so you're the manufacturer. And there it goes into my effects. Here it is, and there we can see the part number, the description. We no longer need the single shots, so we can completely blow those away. We have our final cake, and here's the cake. So now you can see it's represented by a single duration bar. And once we've made the cake, remember we spread out all the shots perfectly evenly, but Finale is automatically adding some time variance to compensate for the imperfectness of fusing in the real world. So I didn't have to do that when I made the cake. I let Finale handle that automatically just by combining the shots into a cake. Finale is automatically adding some time variance.
Yeah.
Now, what if we have this same cake, but maybe there is a small delay between each row? How would we incorporate for that? Because we just spread all 49 shots out equally.
Yeah.
But say our cake actually has a half-second delay between each row or something.
All right, you guys are really testing me. All right, so let's. I think the simple way to do this is to break the cake apart and use the features that exist in Finale for scripting the single shots. So you can select the cake either in the effects window in this case or in the show directly. and then go one or the other. I happen to just do both. But then you can go to effects, break apart cake. You can choose. Am I breaking apart the item I've selected in the show, or am I breaking apart the item I've selected in the effects window? In this case, they're the same thing, so I can choose either one. This opens up a new show just as a scratch pad to work on this one cake. This is where a bunch of tricks come into play. The first trick is it's hard to work on these shots with all the duration bars all over the place. So what I like to do is hit the X-ray button, looks like the radioactive symbol, and hide the duration bars so I can more easily see the cue markers.
Yeah.
And now it gets a little tedious, but my next best practice is to kind of break this apart into rows. So Donnie, are you happy with the timing of the shots within the row, or do you want to adjust that as well?
I think the timing of the shots, I think each shot is probably fine within a row. You have some quick rows, right? So
yeah, so what I would do is click and drag my mouse until I get set with 7 in a row, right? So we get 7, that's a row. Now I kind of want to preserve this as a row and make it easy to work with. And so to do that, I'm going to go to Script, Groups, Combine as Group.
Okay.
Not a chain, a group. Big difference. So a group just sort of visually packs them together on the timeline. It doesn't actually change the number of lines of script you would get or anything like that. It's just to kind of bundle them up on the timeline, right? So we need the next one. So we'll go with these 7. And then I will just do the same thing. Script, Groups, Combine as Group. And now I have one row firing from left to right, and one row firing left to right, and one row firing the other. It doesn't show me the pre-fire. Like, wait, why is it already later than I thought? So now, just because I don't want to have to group all this stuff, I'm just going to delete the rest of the shots.
Yeah.
And now I'll just duplicate these. Yeah. So here's 2 rows, 4 rows, click over here, 6 rows, and then 8 rows, delete that 8th row, and now I have my 7 rows.
Yeah.
So now I can do something cool. When I go into Script, Sequences, Spread Out Evenly, this box is automatically checked because Finale recognized they were groups, and it says keep effects that are at the same time, which we don't have, and groups together. So that means now we're not spreading out individual effects, we're spreading out the groups. So this is going to require a little bit of trial and error to figure out exactly what we want. Let's exaggerate by saying 3 seconds. Now, Donnie, as you can see, we've got a long delay a fairly long delay. If we turn on the duration bars, this will make you'll see the pre-fires there. Actually, that feels pretty good.
It actually feels pretty good. I like that. I like that.
So another thing you can do is just, you can mouse over that end cap there with these all selected and kind of drag them. The downside of this is I don't know exactly what the overall duration of the cake is when I'm doing this. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can go ahead and do that again. Let's just exaggerate it a little more, spread out evenly. And maybe we know the cake is, 30 seconds. So now you get something like this.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
And just for shits and giggles, excuse my French, let's make the last shot an altogether fire.
Oh yeah, even better.
Yeah, perfect.
So let's go to Script, Groups, and let's break these apart. And now we've got the single shots, and we can let me bring the timeline over here, just trying to get that in the center of my view here. I'll just use this little bracket and drag these back so they're all at the same time.
Yeah, there we go.
Now, regardless of whether I have groups or no groups, I can still put this cake back together. And I'll do that by going to Effects, Combine as Cake Effect. And here's my new VDL. If I tell it to use this part number, the same part number we had before, and go back into my effects, we're going to overwrite that cake that had the perfectly even time. If I say, no, this is a new variant, so let's just index that part number by, say, just changing the part number, I just put in a -1. This is the new cake. This one is Donnie's cake. Now I get, a new cake. And I can just close this show. I only needed for working on this cake. And I've got the cake in my effects. I can see it. So I can just close this show. And now I'm back in the show I had before. I can drop that cake in the timeline. And there it is. So this is the second one we made. There's the delay. Going back the other way.
You could definitely see the variation that Finale uses on the timing of the shots, right? Not you can tell not every shot's identical as it comes out. There's a little bit of a variance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there it is. There's a lot to unpack there. I think that's a lot of good content in this little demo.
That was cool. This is a great episode here. Yeah, this is perfect, man. I love this. Yeah, more than just creating the effect. A lot of stuff we can kind of run over there.
Yeah.
Whoa, there's something kind of interesting.
That looks exciting.
Maybe something to talk about next week.
Maybe next week. All right, looks like that. All right.
All right. Sounds good. As always, be sure to go to our PyroUnleashedPodcast.com. Get your merch. Jump in Discord. Come hang out with us. Yeah. With that, Donnie.
With that, guys, we'll see these probably on every Friday at this point on the Finale Tip of the Week on every Friday. And again, you have our regular episodes on Wednesday. A lot of great guests we've probably have had through this point, and so I hope everybody is catching all those great episodes in our Women in Pyro series and all that kind of good stuff we've been doing. So we'll catch you all on our next regular episode, and in the meantime, go out there and unleash your inner pyro with us.
This has been another episode of Pyro Unleashed. Come back each week for more industry insights, technical tips, and awesome pyro designs. Have fun out there, be safe, and as always, remember to unleash your inner pyro with us.